Alright, so before I get into what the mechanicals are, I should explain how I created them. See, at first they were nothing more than a thing for a fan fiction I was writing, part of some military story me and some friends were doing, and it looked very, very rough in terms of designs. I simply just put together something I liked from a video game and just put it together. After a while, I decided to revamp them and flesh them out to be a lot better. I wanted to make a robot race that wasn't, air quotes, overpowered. Because I see a lot of settings where the robots are usually a lot better and are like the really big main threat. But I wanted to make it to where they weren't like that. They were just as susceptible as a normal person or normal soldier, but they weren't the perfect soldier. You know, they were still definitely better than a normal person, but they weren't completely better. They were susceptible to things like hot and cold temperatures, fatigue, food intake, and the usual stuff like that. And with that, that leads us here, the mechanicals. So their anatomy consists of the following systems: movement, control, and energy. The movement is controlled by a series of hydraulics, which connects to a central pump, which acts as a sort of heart. And this is how they're able to move. There are various hydraulic pistons, I guess you could say, that control the limbs and the fingers and all of the movement. And this is why they actually need to have warmth. Not like all the time, but if they're in like freezing conditions, that fluid will actually start to freeze, which is why they need to wear winter clothing within the winter conditions. Then there's the control system, which consists of the various systems such as the eyes, the speaker in order to speak, the ears where they can hear stuff, the brain which allows for thought and, you know, processing information, as well as able to control the various hydraulics that are able to move themselves, as well as sensory, so that way they can sense if they're touching anything. And then there is the energy system. This is made up of an engine system that is powered by biofuel. Because when they consume plant matter, that plant matter gets grounded down and processed into a sort of biofuel, and they can consume basically any plant. There's also a series of filters that line their sort of throat passage that keeps out any bad particulates. They're obviously immune to diseases, toxic fumes, because they're still a machine. However, they do need air, so you can actually suffocate one. So if they don't have air, their engine stops running, and then they don't function anymore. Speaking of that engine, they also need water to keep it cool. There's a sort of radiator system in there that has the water in there. If they don't have enough, then they'll overheat. There's also a pipe that sort of protrudes from the back that sort of spews out the exhaust, and the exhaust can change color depending on the contents of what's inside the engine. Then, the most important piece is the crystal that allows for thought. It basically makes them them. And it's this sort of green crystal that's in there. The crystal could be any color, really, because, you know, the pigments, that's how the weapons in this world work. There can be many pigments put into the crystal to change the color. But I just decided to color it green just for simplicity's sake. That way you can tell that that's what that is. And this was first discovered way long ago, during when machines were first being used by many nations of the world. The machines were used for many aspects of the society, but then until they rose up. Now, back to what I said about them not being overpowered. You see, they can't build endless waves of themselves. They require the resources and careful construction in order to help make an effective unit. You can't just continuously keep mass-producing waves and waves and just march them out to the front. They actually have to be implanted with information, but only the basic information to where they're not stupid when they're first created. But if you need a soldier, you have to send them to basic training. If you need a farmer, then you have to put them into training for that job. If you need scientists, politicians, or engineers, then they have to go to basically academic institutions or other places of study in order to get to the position that they're in. And this is to sort of counter the sort of, you know, waves upon waves of troops. I don't really have much more development than that. And with that, that is all. Have a good night.